wind noise, so I'm not quite sure what you can hear here. But this is the setup. You've got the stormed in sail backed, and it's tied down to the windward. Well, it's tied down to a windward stanchion over there, traction using a Jubilee clip. So the storm bit's raised, and we've got a line coming windward side through a block and then straight through the tiller. And then the tiller is balanced off with some bungee cord, and that's actually doing a pretty good job at the moment. I'm supposed to be steering 260, which is what I'm steering. I don't know if you can see that. It's pretty, yeah, you might be able to see it. And the wind is kind of beam reach, which is always difficult to control. Certainly the tiller pilot has a habit of going all over the place with it. But at the moment I've got this system installed. Ignore the 3 knots. There's something wrong with my wind vane at the moment. It's under registering by a long chalk. It is probably blowing, I would say 10 knots, something like that. Maybe a little bit less. We're doing 5.7 knots over the ground. Since I've had the jib sheet up, there's no diminishment in speed. We're doing great. And it's really a very good system. More importantly, the tiller pilot is now quiet, which does a good job, but it's a noisy thing at sometimes, particularly when it's trying to hunt around trying to find out where it's going. So no, it's a good system. I can recommend it. It's a bit of a fuss setting it all up, but once it's going, it does work extremely well. Okay, so how does this storm jib system work? It's really very simple. This is the setup. So this is the backed storm jib, a line going to a block here to the tiller, and there's a bit of elastic surgical cord balancing the tiller. So that's pulling a bit of tension. So the wind is coming from here. Let's say now that the wind heads up. What then happens is that as the wind moves across towards the front of the boat, the pressure on the storm jib actually increases. What that then does, it pulls the line, which will then move the tiller. So as the boat started to move that way, the tension on the back on the storm jib increases, tension on the line increases, tiller gets pulled over, and the boat moves away from the wind. The pressure on the jib sheet eases, and the bungee cord brings the sail, the tiller back to centre. Similarly, if the boat moves away from the wind, then the pressure on the storm jib decreases. For some reason, when the wind moves away, pressure on that storm jib decreases. It's a little bit contrary to what I would have thought, but that's what happens. And what then happens is pressure on that line decreases. The storm jib, the elastic pulls the tiller over to port in this case, and the boat starts to head up into the wind. And it's a continual balance between the two. Now, if it's a very steady sea, it's only a slight sea to date right now, the tiller doesn't really move that much. But if the sea is a bit more lumpy, of course, then the boat's going to go all over the place, and it will continue that balance. So it's an extremely simple system. Doesn't require much in the way of parts, and once it's set up, it will just keep going forever. So there we go. So just a little bit more attention on the setup, so you can see the surgical cord here, this rubber surgical tubing, and to set the thing up, you have to obviously get the boat going first in the course you want to go, and then you need to balance the tiller. So I have the bungee cord, or not the bungee cord, the tubing attached to a line that goes via a block to a cleat there, and it's very easy just to pull the line, pull that line in and out, just to get the balance right, to get the right course set up, and then tie the line on the cleat. It's as simple as that. There's a reasonable amount of tension on that line coming from the jib. Hence I've got 4 bits of tubing there. I can remove a couple of those tubes if the winds go light, and I can further tension the tubing if the wind tends to increase, which might need a bit more tension. Oops, that's my timer. And really, once it's set up, once you've got it set up, it just keeps on going. It's a very good system. Well, I just want to show you today, it's actually a brilliant opportunity, because we're on a broad reach now, and which should be broad reach more or less to Bradwell if this wind stays like this, so that's great. There's not much wind, so there's not a lot of bouncing around. So it's actually a great opportunity to set up the pulled out jib method for steering, sheet to tiller steering on a broad reach. So let me just show you how all that's set up. So the first thing you do is you raise the storm jib and you pole it out as I've got it now. So I've just raised the storm jib. It's not even on a temporary forestay. In fact, I've just tied to a ring on the deck, hoisted it up. There's not a huge amount of pressure on it, so there's no big deal. There's no problem with the deck warping or anything like that. Then you've got a whisker pole out, so that's whiskered out there. Then you've got this line here, it acts a bit like a sheet, I guess. Comes round a block and then goes to the tiller, and that's then balanced off with our famous little bungee. It's a bit trial and error, how many loops you need and how much tension you need. Basically play around with it. As you get nearer to the direction you want to go, you make smaller and smaller adjustments and see how you go. So I'm aiming for 330. I've set this thing up about 10 minutes ago, and it's proven to be remarkably stable. I haven't done this technique in really heavy seas. There is a video on YouTube from a gentleman called Thuli's Muse, I think it's called, that shows this setup both in light winds and in heavy winds. I've got very light winds at the moment. I'm only doing, what, 3.5 knots, and this I don't know, 5 knots for the wind maybe, if that. But it is an extremely effective method, balances it very nicely, and I can recommend it. It's obviously more setup required. The beauty of this method is that some of the other methods which tie really rely on the jib sheet. Let me just turn this camera around. The beauty of this method, which relies, the other methods which rely on tying a line to the jib sheet, I do find it does remove a little bit of speed, because obviously the jib isn't working as efficiently as it should be, because you're basically trying to hide it from the wind to then release the tension, which will then get taken up by the elastic, and then that's how you steer the boat. This technique, both sails, the main sail and the jib sheet, can give optimal performance, because you're not really using those for steering. You're purely using the jib sheet for steering. In fact, possibly the jib sheet might be adding another 0.1 knot, you never know. So there are some advantages of using this method as well as the jib sheet method for close haul and close reach, in that, again, they don't really affect the efficiency of the main sails too much. So recommend it. Like I said, a bit more to do to actually set it all up. You have to go on deck, which I've never liked doing single-handedly. But once it's set up, it really does prove quite a stable and a good way of steering. One more point to add for this method. This method works from a beam reach. It's a good method for beam reach, and will actually work to more or less downwind. Probably have to be slightly off the wind. So as you go further downwind, you basically just pull the sheet out further and further and further. It's all about as the pressure change, or as the direction of the wind changes, the pressure changes. That's the whole point of the exercise. So it is all about balancing the position of the sails with the tension on the bungees, and away you go. Okay, so how does this method work? A lot of parallels with the reversed storm jib system. Again, here we've got the boat, the elastic, rudder, wind coming from the quarter, line going to the storm jib, and the whisker pole, or the spinnaker pole. Basically what happens is, as the wind moves to the aft side of the boat comes off the wind, the tension on the storm jib decreases, the elastic then takes over, pulls the till around, and the boat starts to head up into or towards the wind again. As it moves towards the wind, the pressure on the storm jib starts to increase, and the line tensions up. Rudder comes to the windward side and again pulls the boat away from the storm jib. And just like with the other method, it's just balancing between those two. If a wave comes along and knocks it over, again the setup then becomes ill-balanced, and then the tiller will move one way or the other to try to rebalance it itself. So that's how it works, and fairly straightforward, and seems to do the job. So we're now, 3 hours later, and we're still holding 330. I haven't touched the tiller since since I set this configuration up. Still holding 330. Winds are still very light, and you can have a look, swing around here. You see, it's kind of slowly steering the boat. Unlike, I guess, with wind vanes, you get quite a lot of movement in the tiller, and it does a pretty good job, of course, in keeping the boat to the wind, to the right angle to the wind. This one is a little bit more subtler, and it's mainly because of the wind are pretty light, but it's very subtle movements. If the boat goes off course, it slowly brings it back on course again. It's not the sort of dramatic pull of tillers you get with either tiller pilots or wind vane for that matter. All very gentle.